Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. The project today is trying to get the HVAC working on my buddy's camper. It's a Sunnybrook 27 RKF fifth wheel. Pretty nice little camper. And it's got an older Dometic Duo-Therm digital thermostat on it that's been causing problems. So I've got to tear into that and see if I can figure out what's wrong with it. This is the thermostat we're going to be trying to repair. It is a Dometic Duo-Therm comfort control 4-button electronic thermostat. And the way to get the thing disconnected so you can work on it, underneath there is a plastic tab right here that's just a typical plastic spring catch, and it just pops off. If I wasn't holding the camera in one hand, I would have had a hold of it. And then it's just a typical phone cord type connection that you hook into. And what's happened with this thing, the control switch on off isn't working. I think it's probably dirty, and I'm suspecting that there is a bad solder joint on the board. The first thing we need to do is get this board out of the housing so we can see what we've got for a mess in here. It's just 4 Phillips screws. It looks like this was manufactured, I'm guessing 95. I don't know what the rest of that might mean. I think this camper is a 96 or 97 model. Okay. I don't know if y'all are going to be able to see that or not. It looks like there's a bad joint right there. And this thing is, I'm sure, nasty as can be. And I do not have contact cleaner that I can find easily. It's like everything else packed somewhere. But all contact cleaner is alcohol with an aerosol propellant, more or less. So I'm just going to put some alcohol in here and work this switch and try to clean it up and see if we can fix this thing. Well, that's already making it work easier. This is actually kind of a poor design, because the only thing that's holding this switch, which is somewhat difficult to operate even under good circumstances, the only thing that's holding it to this board is these 3 little solder joints and the contacts that stick through. It should have had some sort of housing over it or something that you could screw it down or something, because it's not a soft touch button like these. It's an actual slider switch. It seems to be making it move a little bit better. Oh yeah, getting all kinds of nastiness out of there. Now let's see if this little pencil soldering gun is going to get warm enough to let me do anything with this. I may have to go get Actually, I guess this is not a soldering gun, it's a soldering iron. I may have to go get an actual soldering iron. Soldering gun, rather. Can't speak this morning for some reason. And of course I don't have, oh wait, I do have. This is a little bit of flux to try to get that to stick. As dirty and old as this is. Well, did that work? Huh. We got it soldered back on there. It's not the best, but we'll see if it's gonna work. I'm then cleaning up the contacts where the control wire hooks in. All right, let's plug the control wire back in. And, well, we had power momentarily. What the heck? What is going on with this thing? Okay, I don't have any solder wick readily available, so I'm going to try to use some of this fine stranded copper wire and soak the solder off of this so that I can pull that switch off the board and see if I can get it apart and figure out if the contacts are bad or what. And I may need to go to a better solder gun. Well, that's not working worth a crap. Great. I think I just figured out what's wrong with it. Looks like that solder pad, looks like the trace is broken on it. So this thing may be just shot. Why are you being so dang stubborn? Yes, that That solder contact is broken off on the bottom of the switch. Thank you, finally. Okay. So this contact is not the one that had a loose connection that I was fixing, but this one you see is broken off, and it's been that way for a while. So that explains why this is having issues. And I don't know if I can get this back together and get a good enough joint to make it work. And you can't buy these thermostats anymore. And the danger with switching to another thermostat is if you don't get exactly the right kind of thermostat, your control box and stuff don't work. So what should be a $30 job ends up being a couple of $100 job. And you know, since Radio Shack went out of business, I can't go buy one of these switches easily. Nope, no spring. At least not on that side. All right, I called a local RV place, and these thermostats are not made anymore. And the cheapest that we can find one online is about $200 and some odd. So I'm gonna see if I can get enough solder on this joint to get the thing to work. Somehow I doubt that it's going to work, but I'm gonna try. And I am most definitely not an electronic soldering guru. And I just shorted those two out. Try it from this side and see what we get. Might have fixed it. Well, let's plug this thing in with the ugly solder job and see if it'll work. Oh, power's on. Okay, that seems to be working. There's the model number. It's a 3106463.007. And if you have one of these things, chances are it's not acting right. The push buttons on it use a wedge and spring contact system, and over time, especially on the buttons you use the most, they will become finicky. They get to where they just speed past whatever setting you're trying to get to, or they don't work. And what I found out is if you want to have yours redone, it's about $185. If you want to buy one that's been redone, it's about $200. If you want to buy one that's new old stock, it's $250 and up. And the problem with this particular one is the mode switch was not working correctly, and the on-off switch was not working correctly. And what I found is the way that you work on these switches, I'm going to move you in here and try to get a decent picture of it. So when you look at these switches, the housing, which has the contacts, there's 4 pins, through-hole pins that are soldered to the board, and they're inside this housing. And the actual push button switch itself is held in place on this housing by these little plastic spring tabs. There's one on this side and one on this side. And the way to get this switch apart is take a small bladed screwdriver, and I held down on it just a little bit with my finger, and then put that in there and pop those little plastic pieces, and then the wedge portion will come out, and inside here is a spring, and you need to pay attention to the way the springs are facing, because this thing will only go back together one way. I mean, well, it'll go back together the other way, but you'll break something. So the spring, and there's a pin on the bottom side of this wedge that spring sits on. And then on either side is a leaf spring type contact. And when the wedge pushes down, it pushes these together and makes the contact. And what I did to fix this thing was, one, I cleaned this best I could. You could probably soak it in liquid Tarnex or something like that. Of course, I just blew both of them apart. To get the tarnish off of it. But I just used, you know, actually I think I used lacquer thinner and a cotton swab or a Q-tip. But the more important thing I did was looked at this, determined which switch I was having problems with, and which switch was less likely to be used frequently. And so my thought was, you're going to use mode up and down the most, and you're going to use fan the least around here anyway, because, you know, once people turn the air conditioning on, they ain't messing with the fan. So I pulled the springs from the fan switch and put it in the mode switch and moved the mode switch springs and contacts up here, and it solved the problem with this thing operating. I'll get in there, you. And then once you've got it cleaned, you can just push it back down in there, and the little spring clips on the sides will clip back in. And hopefully this will save you a couple of $100. The other thing I saw mentioned on a forum, and I haven't found anything in writing, and haven't been able to confirm it with any RV dealer, mechanic person anywhere in my area, because everything is switched over to newer stuff. But anyway, one thing I found on a forum said that to get this thing to reset and recognize the furnace, because I was having problems with that, you turn it off, then hold the fan and down button at the same time, and then turn it on. I don't know for 100% that that works, but I do know that when I did that, it found the furnace when I started cycling through. So I don't know if it was the reset or if it was just the fact that I cleaned the buttons up and it took a minute to reset its brain once everything was working correctly inside here. Okay, so I've reconnected the phone cord, RJ11 or whatever it is. I'm going to turn this on and cycle through the modes. Right now it says mode off. That's fan only. And that works. There's cool. Buttons are working. And it found the furnace.